An unforgettable scene etched into South Africa's collective memory of a statesman charting a course that would forever change the history of South Africa, forging a legacy that has lasted 22 years into democracy. Mandela was sent to Victor Verster Prison, now called Drakenstein Correctional Centre, from 1988 to February 1990 to complete the final phase of a 27-year sentence. For the prison officials who guarded him during this crucial time and his beloved comrades who waited with bated breath for the outcome of his talks with the apartheid government 26.5 years ago still seems like yesterday.
This house was not built for Madiba. We bought it obviously as an apartment or as government at the time. And the little White House next door, which I will later point out to you, was specifically built for security purposes.
Mandela was accommodated in this large 3-bedroom house located strategically far from the main prison. It has since been turned into a national heritage site with all the furnishings left intact and lovingly maintained. History is present in every room, but Madiba called it his gilded cage. It was here, under tight security and secrecy, that he negotiated a non-racial democratic South Africa. Today, there still remain traces of the surveillance equipment that monitored his every move.
It was a very sensitive time in South African history, and of course the talks. Remember, it was talks about talks and not negotiations, so it was very delicate. And I think for them it was important not to leak anything. In this room in particular, if I just look over my shoulder, in the corner is a little hole where actually one of the cameras used to be. And a few years ago, some of the bathroom tiles inside came loose and we tried to fix it, and behind we actually found 2 listening devices.
Although he was being groomed for his future role as South Africa's first democratically elected president, his tastes and perspective remained disarmingly simple.
And he came in this particular room. Now it's a huge room in any person's standard, and he spent roughly 3 nights in this room before he requested to move to something much smaller. Conditioned to a specific space like Paulsville, like Robben Island, and suddenly move him into this room, I think in a sense it was mental punishment, if you ask me. So he requested something smaller that he can be more in control, and feel more comfortable and more secure. Remember, he came here after 25 years in prison. So when he walked through this house the following day, he noticed, what we know as a microwave oven, and in the opposite corner a television. And he then remarked saying that, this house has 2 TVs. And this one officer heard it and started to laugh. Said, that's not a television, it's a microwave. And Madiba said, no, what's that? One of our colleagues actually, he came one day and he brought a little surfboard and he tried to teach Madiba how to swim. The day that he left, of course, he was still unable to swim, but he left by taking 2 things with him. A little FM radio that he came with, and that surfboard, he said, so dear to my heart.
To mitigate the isolation and apprehensiveness he must have felt during that critical time, he would walk the perimeter of the house and gaze into the majestic mountainous backdrops framing the prison. To Madiba, the mountain range resembled a sleeping giant.
This house becomes one of the symbols besides Robben Island that gives a picture of the final stages towards the end of apartheid.
Although he deferred to the collective decisions of the liberation movement, he felt the burden of responsibility for the outcome of these talks about talks, as recalled by his comrades in arms and in prison on Robben Island.
That generation of Madiba, that collective, that was a special generation. That's a generation which was product of those conditions and have been able to carry us up to the time that everybody in South Africa can vote.
Madiba asked us one question, that if you want to destroy this country, who's going to build it? If you want to bring it to ashes, we're soldiers, we're ready for anything. We said it can be ashes like the Middle East or whatever. I said, we must build it. He said, no, why should we destroy our country and rebuild it when we have a chance of negotiating and getting a settlement?
Many people thought he had sold them out. And he told them, oh, they said, we will take up our arms, we will fight till the bitter end. He then told them, don't be foolish. If you truly want to change people, don't attack their brains, rather attack their hearts, because once you're in their hearts, then you can start to move the furniture.
And perhaps most fitting to a leader who chose to build rather than destroy is the symbolically charged lemon tree he planted that still bears fruit in more ways than one.
The story that I love to tell is actually based on this one famous song called Just Another Lemon Tree. And if you listen to the words of the song, essentially the singer tried to convince his friend to look beyond the lemon tree, see the blue, blue skies.
On February the 11th, 1990, those first steps through the garden gate, now named Freedom Gate, into a new beginning and a future from which there was no going back.
The Freedom Gate in the garden area is a little black gate. That was the last official prison gate that he walked through after almost 10,000 days in prison.
And on leaving Drakenstein prison, the inscriptions by his statue remain powerful and inspiring, Madiba imploring us to live in a way that improves the lives of others.
He basically said, big doors hang on small hinges. You need not to be, the most important. You need not even to be the leader. As long as you can add value, as long as you can contribute, and when you do so, do it with clean hands and a pure heart.
Hazel Friedman, SABC News, at the Drakenstein Correctional Centre.